What's going on, everybody, and welcome back into the channel. Brenden Schaeffer Fantasy Football, recapping Week 1 after a crazy week of NFL football. A lot of weird things going on for fantasy this weekend, honestly, and we want to try and sift through the things that we should be reacting to and paying attention to, and then maybe talk about the things that, yeah, it was weird, it happened, but it's not necessarily predictive or something we should be concerned about moving forward into the rest of the NFL season. We just wrapped up with the Monday Night Football game between the Bills and the Jets. As of right now, we don't have definitive confirmation while I'm recording this that Aaron Rodgers has ruptured his Achilles, but that seems to be the case. The Jets getting that big, exciting win over the Bills on the punt return in overtime, but of course, their season, the prospects for that high-flying offense, yeah, that's going to have to be on hold for a little bit if Zach Wilson is quarterbacking the team. I really hope the Jets go out and get somebody. A lot of conversations about DTR. I'm seeing on Twitter people saying, oh, get him Dorian Thompson-Robinson from the Browns. We'll see if that's anything that comes to fruition. But I'm going to go game by game here, try to keep it brief. We'll start with Thursday's game between the Chiefs and the Lions and just going to talk about the things that stand out to me. As we continue on this channel moving forward, we will kind of get it down in terms of the style of videos that we want to put out each day of the week. But make sure you hit that subscribe button as we did the mock drafts. That's over now, and we're getting into regular season content. Was on vacation for week 1, and so not a lot leading up to week 1 of NFL football on the channel, but there will be plenty of NFL talk moving forward. So let's go ahead and get into it. Lions over the Chiefs, 21-20. Takeaways, the Chiefs offense, in particular the wide receivers, the pass catchers, they left you wanting more with no Travis Kelce on the field. Really nobody out of this group should be started in Kansas City moving forward until we see some consistency. Kadarius Toney with an all-time bad night. If you've got him on your team, for the love of all that is holy, put him on your bench. I don't think you should necessarily drop him because the reality is the Chiefs are going to be relying upon Kadarius Toney moving forward, but it was not a good situation. I did like what we saw from Rashee Rice, 3 catches, 29 yards, and he did have the touchdown from down near the goal line. But even Rashee Rice, look at the way they spread it around. Isaiah Pacheco leading the charge with 4 receptions. Just a lot of non-startable fantasy assets in that group. There are going to be spike weeks from certain guys, but unless you're Travis Kelce, right now it's very risky to start anyone in the Chiefs receiving core. Sky Moore is the guy that I am hoping can get it figured out. You see him down here at the bottom with a 0 for 0. But the fact that he only got 3 targets on a night where Travis Kelce wasn't on the field, that is a concern. But a lot of what happens in week 1, you do have to kind of wipe the slate and just see what ends up taking place as time goes on. But Travis Kelce returning to that lineup will help Patrick Mahomes and hopefully the other wide receivers. But when you have the ball hit you in the hands, you got to do something about it. And the Chiefs wideouts just didn't do it in game 1. Jahmyr Gibbs, not a high snap percentage, but man, did he look electric in the opportunities he got. 42 rushing yards on 7 carries. Mixed in a couple of receptions in the passing game. Amon-Ra St. Brown was exactly who we thought he would be. Very excited to see that from him in game 1. My advice as it pertains to Jahmyr Gibbs, right? 21 carries, had the touchdown, which was a nice 8-yard touchdown run, but the efficiency wasn't really spectacular, right, from David Montgomery. But the thing of it is, I don't know if that really matters all that much in terms of predicting what's going to happen moving forward because the Lions and Dan Campbell want to run the football, and they want to use David Montgomery in doing that. I do think Jahmyr Gibbs' snap percentage is going to go up as the season goes along, but David Montgomery, the volume is very encouraging. However, when I'm playing in PPR leagues in particular, I'm trying to go for upside, and so I actually did make a trade already, and I'll talk a little bit more about my trade perhaps in a video later this week as we get into trade theory and trade strategy when it comes to fantasy football. But I was messaging with a guy in my league. I had offered him some trades earlier in the week, and he messaged me during the Lions-Chiefs game on Thursday saying, oh, man, I wish I would have taken the deal. David Montgomery looks to be the big gun there because of the snap percentage he was getting in the game. And I thought, well, I'm still very interested in Jahmyr Gibbs because he's looked electric to me. And so maybe I can try and swing a trade with this guy right now where I get Jahmyr Gibbs on my team. And that is what I ended up doing. I'll talk about it if you say so in the comments if you want to hear about the trade that I swung. It was like a 3-for-3 trade where I got Gibbs, gave up Montgomery, but there were wide receivers involved as well. I think it was actually a 4-for-3 deal. But my thought process is if you think you can sell high on David Montgomery, I would do that, but don't sell him for anybody that was drafted later on in your fantasy drafts, right? Try to trade up if you can. Jahmyr Gibbs was like a 3rd-round pick in a lot of leagues. I think I moved up in that deal, especially in PPR leagues. But just something to keep an eye on and think about. One other mention of the Lions, I liked Sam Laporta getting involved in the action a little bit early on. As it pertains to the Browns versus the Bengals, I am basically just completely wiping the slate when it comes to the Bengals losing 24-3. The offense was abysmal, but I don't think that's anything that's going to be predictive. Like, I don't think all of a sudden players like Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow just completely forgot how to play football. T. Higgins was a goose, which is not comfortable for people that kind of endured the roller coaster with him a little bit last year. Happens to you again in week 1 this year. I don't really think I'm going to pay any attention to it. I'm ignoring everything that happened with the Bengals. Jerome Ford, as it pertains to the Browns side of things, was a nice backup running back. You see 15 carries. Not really efficient, but the opportunity is interesting, and I think you can pretty much lock him in behind Nick Chubb. He should probably be rostered in deeper leagues, but not somebody you should be starting. Nick Chubb is going to have a massive season, could lead the NFL in rushing. Nothing too much to take away from the Browns side of things other than the fact that Nick Chubb mixed in with 4 receptions is encouraging. If he gets the pass work as well, he's going to be a factor in fantasy, even more so than he always has been. Baltimore Ravens 25, Houston Texans 9. This is about the way I thought this game would go on the Texans side. A little disappointing that Dameon Pierce not even getting all of the work. If you can find a way to unload Dameon Pierce without really trading down too much, maybe somebody that just isn't concerned about it. I just don't know how many people are going to be buying Dameon Pierce after that week 1, but I would maybe wait for a big Dameon Pierce game and sell him in that environment. He's just not going to be on a robust offense, and Devin Singletary mixed in a decent amount in this game. But again, not much going on with the Texans, so we won't spend that much time on them at all. But the Ravens are interesting. Lamar Jackson had a terrible game. Just not a lot going on. 17 for 22, but no touchdowns. Under 200 yards passing. This is not the debut that I expected for the Todd Monken offense in Baltimore. And, of course, J.K. Dobbins out for the season. I believe it was the Achilles for him. Absolutely brutal for that team. Justice Hill is a guy that you want to put up high in the waiver priority. They also have Melvin Gordon that John Harbaugh, I believe, was talking up and saying, hey, we've got Melvin Gordon for a reason. That wouldn't really excite me, but Justice Hill is a little younger, and so maybe he's a guy that you definitely should be keeping an eye on as it pertains to waivers, but Baltimore's still going to have a run game, so Hill and Melvin Gordon probably rosterable, but I would be only targeting Hill in particular because I think Justice Hill could mix in as a receiver some, although we didn't end up seeing that in this game. But we did see Zay Flowers 9 for 78. If you drafted Zay Flowers, congratulations. I think he is the wide receiver 1 in Baltimore, which is what I was expecting. Odell Beckham, 2 for 37. That's more what I think about Odell Beckham. Rashad Bateman was more of a rotational player at wide receiver. Very disappointing day from Isaiah Likely. But if Mark Andrews remains out, I think you can continue to fire up Likely. It's not comfortable, but if you look at the tight end landscape from week 1, it was an outright disaster. So it's not like you're missing out on a whole lot as it pertains to that situation in Baltimore. Tampa Bay Buccaneers 20, Minnesota Vikings 17. Yeah, this was a stinker for the Vikings. Kirk Cousins got you some fantasy points. I have him in a league where it's a six-point passing touchdown league. But overall, just really disappointing for the Minnesota team to lose that game. Alexander Mattison is not going to be overly efficient. I don't think he's that great of a player, but he's going to get all the work, and so you can enjoy that if you've got him on your teams. Justin Jefferson is going to be him. The big takeaway from here, Jordan Addison with a 4 for 61 and a touchdown right out of the gate. That's 16 PPR points. You can start him every week. I think he is going to be one of the more impressive rookie receivers as we go along here this season. Taking a look at the Falcons, 24-10 over the Panthers. This is kind of what you expected from the Falcons offense. If you watched last year, the way they ran things, yeah, you might have Kyle Pitts on your fantasy team. You might have Drake London on your fantasy team. You're regretting those draft picks, I think, at this point in time. And if you can get any value for them, I would do so. I would trade them because it's not going to be fun watching week in and week out an offense where Arthur Smith wants to do exactly what he did in this game, which is a lot of Tyler Algier and a lot of Bijan Robinson. 25 carries between the two of them. Algier getting both of the touchdowns was unfortunate, but in the short passing game, Bijan Robinson getting it done for PPR leagues, 6 receptions for 27 yards and a touchdown. Look, I don't know what you could possibly get for Drake London after a goose egg game. Wait for a big game and trade him. He'll have his big games, but you won't want to be spending time on him in your flex, waiting for those big games to arrive. Kyle Pitts, 2 for 44. I would be trying to trade him if I could. What the value is going to be on that, I honestly don't know. I didn't draft any of either of these players because I looked at the Atlanta offense and said, yep, they're going to run the football. No reason for Arthur Smith to do it any differently, especially after it worked again this week with the Falcons coming away with a 2-touchdown victory. Good on Miles Sanders for the 18 carries and 72 yards, but it's going to be kind of empty calories for the most part. Hopefully he continues to be involved in the passing game because these 4 for 26 kind of days through the air will bump up your team and get you to the double-digit mark. And he didn't find the end zone, and the Carolina Panthers rarely will. But Miles Sanders is a guy that, based on week 1 usage, kind of regretting that I didn't go in on him at all in drafts just because I think he is a stable floor running back, should get you 10 to 12 PPR points per week. But don't worry about anybody else in Carolina. That's an ugly situation all the way around. Bryce Young is going to take time. It's going to take time for Bryce Young to be able to get things going. So that's just going to be the way that it is in Carolina. Washington Commanders winning over the Cardinals 20-16. Joshua Dobbs. Yeah, you don't want anything to do with this Cardinals offense. James Conner is going to be the volume king. 14 for 62 in this game. 5 catches for 8 yards in this game. Similar to what we said with Miles Sanders a moment ago, if there's anybody in your league that, they're just unenthused by James Conner because they saw the writing on the wall with the Cardinals offense being bad, I would go after James Conner for the 10, 12 points if you need it, because I think he's going to be a pretty safe bet for that. The receptions are great in PPR. 8 yards on 5 receptions is pathetic, but that's going to be the Cardinals offense this year. And if you're in the PPR league, I wouldn't turn my nose at that necessarily. Sam Howell, not quite the robust performance against the Cardinals that I was hoping to see from him, but we'll keep our eyes out for how he does in future weeks. We're high on that Sam Howell-Jahan Dotson connection. Dotson goes 5 for 40, so relatively quiet week. I would be trading for Jahan Dotson this week. Let me know in the comments who you want to trade away to get him, and I'll tell you if I think it's a good idea or not. But I would rather have Dotson than Terry McLaurin this year, to be honest with you. Terry's a little older, a little more injury concerns with him typically, and I think Jahan Dotson is just an explosive player. In the running back room, pay attention. Brian Robinson is getting the entire pie, 19 for 59. He even was active in the passing game with the receiving touchdown. Antonio Gibson hardly mixing in at all. I think that's probably going to continue. Gibson, I believe, struggled. He might have had a fumble in this game as well. Not going to be able to find it here on the stats I'm looking at, but definitely Brian Robinson is the guy you want, and I a little bit regret that I think I came to that conclusion a little bit too late in the draft process. Didn't get a ton of him, but we move on. Jaguars 31, Indianapolis Colts 21. Nice debut by Anthony Richardson. Not great throwing the football, but he's not going to be. But the 10 for 40 on the ground with a touchdown is what you can count on. If you drafted him late, it's always the rookie quarterbacks, the young quarterbacks that aren't proven as passers. But if you know they've got running as a part of their games, we should keep in mind every year as the fantasy community, draft those guys for fantasy because the floor is just, it's hard to match. I mean, you have a guy like Joe Burrow get you 3 fantasy points this week. Is he going to do that every week? Of course not. But Anthony Richardson is rarely going to get you 3 because he's going to get you 10 on the ground more times than not. 40 yards and a touchdown today, or Sunday, I should say. Good for Anthony Richardson and for those who drafted him. Michael Pittman, ignoring him was probably a mistake in drafts because he is kind of the only game in town when it comes to the receiving game for Indy, and we know the running game is a mess. Deion Jackson was bad. Evan Hull got injured. Jonathan Taylor's probably never playing another snap for them. So Michael Pittman's like the one talented, proven player in this offense in terms of skill players. 8 for 97 and a touchdown. I think he's going to get hyper-targeted. I didn't talk about the Jags. Hyper-targeted when it comes to that connection with the rookie quarterback. So if you believed in Michael Pittman when everybody else just tried to avoid the Colts offense entirely, sort of like I did, I think you did well. And I'm not looking to trade away Michael Pittman off that game. I'm looking to hold on to him and enjoy the ride because I think it'll be a solid season for him. Speaking of solid seasons, Calvin Ridley's going to have an incredible one. 8 for 101 and a touchdown. Yeah, the year that he missed due to the gambling suspension doesn't seem to have cost him anything. He looks really sharp, and the connection with Trevor Lawrence is undeniable. Lawrence does just enough in this game. The running game was interesting. You get the Bigsby touchdown, but man, not efficient, didn't look great. ETN, I think, is going to end up being kind of a smash this year. I'm hanging on to Bigsby where I have him, just because he's one injury away from being the running back one in an offense that's really going to be strong this year. Before the season, I liked Jaguars to win that division and also maybe win 12 or 13 games and challenge for the 1 seed in the AFC if things break their direction. The schedule sets up nicely. So I'm definitely interested in ETN. I think it's going to be tough to trade for him if you didn't draft him. But definitely somebody that I'm looking at to kind of trade for off of a bad week, because one of those could eventually arrive for him, and he'd be somebody that I would target in that instance. Bigsby, just kind of hang on. If anybody drops him, I'm picking him up just because it doesn't cost you much to stash him on your bench, and I think ultimately he's one of the more high priority handcuffs or secondary backs, just in case of an injury that should happen to the starter. Bigsby would be very fantasy relevant. Zay Jones over Christian Kirk was the scuttlebutt in camp, and it ends up being very much true. Zay Jones playing a higher allotment of snaps, going 5 for 55 and a touchdown. I would not be trading for Christian Kirk necessarily unless I'm basically giving waiver fodder. Guys like Jaden Green, very low priority players, I would go after Christian Kirk, because an injury could always happen. Things could change, and Kirk had a great year last year, but it seems that he's now the odd man out. They trust Zay Jones, at least in week 1, more than they do Christian Kirk. So that seems notable. 30-7, the win for the 49ers over the Pittsburgh Steelers. Brock Purdy doing his game manager act and doing a nice job of it. Brandon Ayuk was the entire thing for this offense. 8 for 129 and 2. Congrats if you drafted him in the 5th or 6th round. He ends up being a smash, and I'm hoping that some of that can flow to Deebo Samuel's way a little bit more often. But if you're a Deebo manager who's worried about that first week, my advice would be to wait for Deebo's game to pop. Unless you can trade him off of his name, because Deebo does have a big fantasy name. Unless you can trade him now, I would just wait for that big game to pop. But then I would be looking to trade Deebo, because he's not guaranteed to be the focal point in this passing offense. Kittle's going to have his days. Ayuk's going to have his days. But when Deebo has his, people will be reminiscent of the year that he was like wide receiver 2 behind Cooper Kupp a couple of years ago. And maybe you can trade up off of Deebo Samuel. But even with his injury history, too, I just think it makes the most sense to be looking for opportunities to move him. But Deebo had like 11 PPR points this week. Nothing terrible. Christian McCaffrey is going to continue to be a all-world smash, just doing what he does. Steelers, yikes. Kenny Pickett's bad. I think he's going to continue to be bad. I had some hope that he would be able to sustain some fantasy options in this offense. A little bit more concerned at this point. But you're still going to need running backs. They're still going to play NFL schedules. So guys like Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren, you're paying attention to. The snaps were pretty even between these two guys. I would still be buying Jaylen Warren off of this week. Not sure I'd be buying Najee Harris unless you can get him for dirt cheap, because I just don't think he's going to keep Jaylen Warren held off the entire year. I think it's going to be more of a timeshare in that backfield. And Warren you can probably get for really cheap right now. There will be teams that drop him because they'll look at the box score and go, oh, he didn't really do much. Now, he did, in PPR leagues, get you like 6 points because of the 5 receptions. But if anybody drops Jaylen Warren, you be the one to pick him up. I think he is the guy that I would rather have at cost compared to Najee Harris in the Steelers' backfield. Allen Robinson, absolutely shocking to me that he is relevant. Don't go pick him up, but keep an eye on that situation. Kind of surprising. Calvin Austin, too. I had kind of written him off after the injured year. Just something to kind of keep an eye on in terms of the pecking order in this receiver room. Disappointing for George Pickens, but maybe a better day for Kenny Pickett down the line could result in a better day overall for this offense. I'm not necessarily holding my breath, but Deontay Johnson, guys like that, you're kind of looking at that going, maybe not too enthused by that week. But nothing really actionable, I think, from the Steelers other than the Jaylen Warren. Want to make sure to send the smoke flare out to pick him up if he's dropped. I think that's probably something that could happen in 12-team leagues, and you should be there to pick him up when it does. Tyjae Spears should be near the top of your waiver priority if he was not owned. I know what you're seeing. 3 for 27 on carries is nothing impressive, only 1 catch. But the snaps, man, Tennessee Titans historically have frustrated Derrick Henry managers by basically taking him off the field for third downs. And that was kind of what happened in this game. Tyjae Spears playing all the third downs. Derrick Henry, I don't know if he played any or how many he played, but you could be looking at a lot of empty calories for the King this year. 15 carries, 63 yards, no touchdowns. If he doesn't score and he doesn't get involved in the passing game, it could be problematic. Now, they did get him to break 1 screen off, and I've been saying for years they should throw him 5 screens a game because one of them is going to go for 50 yards. That is just what Derrick Henry does. So hopefully if you're a Henry manager, that's what you get out of him. I'm not really looking to trade away Derrick Henry right now. Hold on to him if you've got him. If you don't have him, try to trade for him off of this week. But I also think that the snap managing is going to be interesting in Tennessee because Spears does seem to be involved. If he's not owned in your leagues, pick up Tyjae Spears. Put in a waiver claim on him. I'll have a waiver video out later this week kind of prioritizing some of these running backs, but he's a name that I definitely would like to mention. Don't forget about him in the shuffle of this week. On the other side, Derek Carr was average in this game, but Chris Olave still got his, and I think that's going to be a constant. Michael Thomas showing up, good for him. Like, I wasn't sure what level of Michael Thomas we'd even see, so 5 for 61 is relatively nice for him. Jamal Williams is very inefficient. I am looking to pick up Kendra Williams. If you didn't have him stashed on IR like I did in several leagues, Kendra Williams, running back for the Saints, rookie runner, coming out of TCU, pick him up because if and when he returns off of what I believe is the hamstring injury, he could very well be the running back one if they decide, oh, yeah, Jamal Williams does not have the juice. Kendra is somebody that I think has much more upside. Yes, it gets more complicated when Alvin Kamara comes back after 3 weeks, but for now, Kendra is another name to kind of keep flagged when you're thinking about waivers this week. And if he's out for another week, you can stash him on IR. I think that would be a great way to go about it. Raiders getting the win over the Broncos. Not good start for Sean Payton's tenure in Denver. 17-16 Raiders win this one. I am concerned for Devontae Adams. 6 for 66, which is fine. It's nothing crazy, but it's not the draft price you paid for him. And this is kind of what I expected. I just don't know that it's going to be the 12 to 15 catch games that Devontae Adams is known for. And he's also not going to get the deep passing and the yardage that he's come to be known for with the Raiders. Last year, Derek Carr and his connection was great down the field. The depth of target was fantastic. I don't know if it's going to remain that way this year. And Jacoby Myers seems to benefit from the short to intermediate passing lanes that are going to be open for Jimmy G. A couple of touchdowns. Yeah, pick up Jacoby Myers if he's out there. I doubt he probably is, but he's going to have a role as kind of that slot guy that catches Jimmy G's eyes because he's looking to get rid of the ball a little quicker than the way that Devontae Adams was used last year. Now, we know Devontae demands the ball, so I'm not saying trade him away by any means. Just lower your expectations. Instead of being like a late first-round pick, he might end up performing like a third-round pick this year. But he's still going to be a nice floor guy for PPR. But the touchdowns may not flow his way as often because the the Raiders just may not score that many. Running game, Josh Jacobs gets the whole pie. I would trade for Josh Jacobs off of that game just because if you just looked at the box score and saw a low output from him, you might be disappointed. But almost 20 carries, I mean, he's gonna catch some passes as well. Touchdowns will eventually flow his way. Try to buy him on the cheap, I think, is a reasonable try. And I'm going to give you some names, and you're going to say, fantasy player out there, you're going to go, oh, come on, nobody is really going to make that trade, after 1 week. Fantasy players are reactionary. That is the number one thing to remember when going into the trade markets. Don't be afraid to send out a trade that you get lambasted for and have the other guy go, dude, I'm not selling low on that player. And you just write back, all right, cool. I just had to make sure because I know that there are going to be people in the fantasy community selling low on guy X, Y, or Z this week. So you always want to be the person that is trying to take advantage of that. Don't be a jerk about it or anything, but it's okay to ask on players that you think the other guy is not going to trade away. It's okay to fire off an offer, and if it doesn't work out, great. Don't push the issue at that point. Don't get a league mate mad at you over something that's unlikely to happen anyway. But it's okay to try and buy guys low and sell guys high. It is the way of the world in fantasy football, and for every 10 rejections you get, if you get one that goes through, I'm telling you, over the course of a season, you might make 4 or 5 trades that way and be glad you did. All right, finishing up this conversation on the Raiders-Broncos game. Subscribe to this channel, though, by the way. If you enjoy conversation like this and tips and strategy as to, a lot of times the fantasy content that you get out there might be very cookie-cutter and you're waiting to hear about a certain player. I'm willing to tell you about every player that you want to know about. If you let me know in the comments who you're asking about, what do you want to know as it pertains to trades, waivers, lineups, anything, I feel like this channel can be a way to kind of really dig through a lot of the clutter and go, look, at its basic level, we're all trying to do similar stuff. So here's the strategies that I have used in fantasy to do some of that stuff. And if you like it, subscribe, like the videos, listen to the content, that kind of stuff. And we'll have a lot of fun this year. Let's talk about the Broncos. Was encouraged by Javonte Williams getting the opportunity that he did. 13 for 52. Broncos weren't really robust in the game. They got to see a better version of Russell Wilson. It was very dink and dunk in this game. 27 for 34 for 177 and 2. So he got the job done for fantasy with a couple of passing touchdowns. But Javonte Williams looks good to my eyes. I think he's going to be solid this year. And 4 receptions doesn't hurt as well. Would like to see him be able to break out on any of those catches to get some yardage, to convince him that, hey, it's a good idea to continue to throw to him. Samaje Perine, much more successful on his receptions. It's not going to be the whole pie for Javonte in Denver, but he'll have enough of it that you'll be happy for fantasy if you drafted him. Eagles 25, Patriots 20. Kind of a quiet day for Jalen Hurts through the air. A.J. Brown still finds a way to get his. The key takeaway from this game, other than Devontae Smith still looking pretty solid, if he hadn't found the end zone as part of that big day, I mean, that was the bulk of his production, came on one play. I would be trying to trade for Devontae Smith. I don't think it's possible to do if you just look at the box scores and say, okay, he had 17 points. Probably can't get him this week, but wait for the down game by Devontae Smith if it ever comes and trade for him. Super high on him this season. And Kenny Gainwell, if you invested in him late in your fantasy drafts, you're a big winner. Rashad Penny was a healthy scratch, game day inactive for the Eagles in this game. And DeAndre Swift, just the one carry for 3 yards, not mixing in a ton. I don't know how much Gainwell will continue to have this level of workload, but 14 for 54. He is the running back one, at least the way that they're operating right now in Philadelphia. And that's going to be a great offense. So the fact that he can catch passes, he can run the ball, they trust him as they've got all these guys that they brought in. They were in on the Jonathan Taylor sweepstakes, and maybe they will continue to be, and that could be something that knocks Gainwell down. But for the price you paid, man, fantastic. I did have a trade go down in one of my leagues. I wasn't involved in it, but Gainwell was dealt for Terry McLaurin this week, which I said to the guy that was asking me, hey, should I do this trade? I'm like, look, I think Gainwell is the RB1 there, but it's kind of tentative. It may not stay that way, and McLaurin's certainly a bigger fantasy name, but I also prefer Jahan Dotson. So, like, if you could go Gainwell for Dotson, 100% I'd do that. McLaurin, I told the guy, like, I can understand doing it, but it's also, you might want to bet on Kenny Gainwell just remaining very involved for the Eagles because they trust him. And that's a tricky one. But that's something to keep an eye on. Gainwell, if he's somehow out there on waivers in your league, go get him. But very interesting. Also interesting to see the Patriots side of things. Not a good day for Ramondre on the ground, but a great one through the air. 6 for 64, tying Kendrick Bourne, who I don't know what to make of the Kendrick Bourne thing. You look at the receivers, man, for the Patriots. If Juju is just kind of middling the way he was, 4 for 33, and he's also not like that explosive athlete that's going to be a wide receiver one for a team, maybe Kendrick Bourne is worth a flyer on waivers. He's not the kind of guy I'm ever going to want to start, but you pick him up, I think, and just you kind of see what happens. Interesting that Kayshon Boutte didn't catch a ball, but played a good number of snaps. I thought he was going to get cut, honestly, from the Patriots in camp. But maybe Boutte is a guy to keep an eye on as well, even though, yeah, he didn't do anything for fantasy. But if he's playing, something to keep an eye on potentially. Demario Douglas is not somebody I'm chasing. Not too interested in this Patriots offense in general, but Ezekiel Elliott should be somebody you pay attention to because I think he's got a passing game role going 5 for 14. Like, Ramondre will catch the ball too, but Mac Jones is going to dink and dunk to both of these guys. So Zeke, I think he landed in a perfect spot for fantasy, despite the fact that he's just not that exciting of a player. But he's going to have a role in the backfield and in the passing game. So for PPR, absolutely Zeke Elliott. Finally, we can talk about Puka Nacua. Puka Kupp was fantastic, filling in for Cooper Kupp. 10 for 119. He had like 15 targets. I was in on him for best ball drafts on Underdog. I didn't really end up getting him on enough of my redrafts. I have him in one redraft league. Dynasty season, I was not paying attention to him the way that I should have been. So I'm feeling very underweight on Puka. But I was into him coming into this week. He's more the style of receiver that Cooper Kupp is, if you remember him from BYU at all. Tutu Atwell is the little guy who went 6 for 119 as well. Go pick up Tutu by all means. But I think Puka, in terms of PPR leagues, he is here to stay until Cooper Kupp comes back. Like, he's going to fill that role. So I don't think this is smoke. I think go get Puka Nacua. Maybe the Rams offense won't be as efficient as it was in this game, but if Matthew Stafford, he's a very simple man at this point in his career. He's like, oh, that guy's my Cooper Kupp now? Okay, I'm going to throw to him like he's Cooper Kupp. And if he behaves like Cooper Kupp, I will continue to enjoy that relationship. That's what's going to happen. Go get Puka. He's my number one priority at the wide receiver position, and he's going to be prioritized above some of those running backs that we've already mentioned as well. Click subscribe to this channel, and you'll get my waiver video, which I should be able to put out sometime on Tuesday to get you ready for the Tuesday night waivers that will run overnight, Tuesday into Wednesday. So make sure you're subscribed to the channel for that. As far as one of those running backs, yeah, Kyren Williams is going to be on that list. 15 carries, 52 yards, 2 touchdowns. The Vianney product out of St. Louis, Notre Dame product as well. And evidently, the running back one for this team. I don't really know. Cam Akers had 22 carries, but most of those coming in the second half when the game was kind of out of hand. I have no idea what's going to happen with this running back room, but I do know that Kyren Williams should be rostered by all means. Is it a high upside, high priority addition to your fantasy team? Maybe not if the Rams aren't projected to be that good, but they kind of did it with the merry band of misfits in this game. Tutu Atwell, Puka Nacua, and Kyren Williams combining to be some very relevant skill position players. The three of them combined had like 300 total yards. So you take it. Kyren Williams, I'm looking at these stats on Google. It's impossible for him to have had a 0 receptions for 2 yards total. So take that with a grain of salt. But yeah, Kyren Williams, Puka Nacua, even Tutu, I think, is somewhat interesting. More of like a Tavon Austin size guy for those who remember him from the Rams back in St. Louis. But I like Puka a lot. And, man, I'm wishing I had more shares of him. Do you have any Puka Nacua shares? Who's the guy in your fantasy season across your leagues that after week 1 you're going, glad I have this guy? And who in the comments, let me know, are you wishing you had more of? For me, it's Nacua because I believed in him, but I ended up not actually doing enough about it, which tells you I'm in too many leagues. And also, you want to kind of tune out. I know I'm giving fantasy advice here. You want to tune out some of the fantasy advice that you get. Stick with the guys that you had in your gut and that you want to be able to keep on your teams when the time comes, because that's kind of a regret of mine that ultimately I just wasn't really able to take advantage of Puka, even though I liked him a lot. On the Seattle side of things, not an impressive showing for Geno Smith and company. He just didn't look very good passing the football, didn't get a lot done in terms of volume, 112 yards passing. Kenneth Walker was the entire pie, essentially, in the running game when it comes to 12 carries for 64 yards. Looked fine, but even 4 receptions for 3 yards didn't amount to much, but got the work in the passing game. Zach Charbonnet, I thought would be more involved. I'm not panicking on him, but he's certainly not startable. I actually started him in week 1 in a 14-team league, and I regretted that. He got me like 1 fantasy point. So, yeah, it's basically, even though he was kind of nursing an injury and was able to play in this game, thought maybe he'd be more limited. Nope, Kenneth Walker was the guy for Seattle. I don't know why they drafted Zach Charbonnet either, if they weren't going to use both guys. DJ Dallas even mixed in as a kind of a third down back. So I have no idea what to make of that Charbonnet situation. I'm holding. I'm not dropping him because I do think handcuff-wise he's pretty valuable for a Seattle team that's going to run the football a lot, but just wasn't a great game for them. Tyler Lockett exited the game with an injury. I think he cleared the concussion protocol, but just all around a bad game for Seattle. Kind of like the Bengals, I'm throwing that one in the trash for the Seahawks, and I'm not panicking too much just yet. Here's a team that you're not throwing in the trash. Well, 2 teams. The Dolphins, 36, the Chargers, 34. This game was billed as a fantasy bonanza, and it delivered. Tua Tagovailoa, 466 yards, 3 touchdown passes, was fantastic through the air. Raheem Mostert got most of the work on the ground with Devon Achane as a game day scratch, a healthy scratch, which, of course, Yahoo decided to really take literally and marked him as not active, which is no different than another guy being marked as out, but only the Yahoo platform decides to screw over fantasy players. So I had Devon Achane on a bench and couldn't put him on IR. Nevertheless, Raheem Mostert looking good. The thing to worry about here, though, is Jonathan Taylor. It seems like that saga is not yet over. And, man, would he be a great fit on a Dolphins team that wins against a tough Chargers team week 1. Miami looking like definitely a possibility to win the AFC East after what we saw this week. The Jets, yeah, they got the win over the Bills, but who's their quarterback moving forward with the Rodgers injury? So the Dolphins are in great spot to potentially trade for Jonathan Taylor if they want to be aggressive. That would be the concern to Raheem Mostert. I would be trading away Raheem Mostert, honestly, especially if you find another game for him that's a big one. But in this one, he goes for 37 yards and a touchdown, couple of catches. I think within the next couple of weeks, I'd be looking to trade him away if he has consistency, because I don't see Raheem Mostert holding up as the RB1 there for the entire season. Whether it's Jonathan Taylor or Devon Achane coming along more strong, something's got to give. But I would hang on to Tyreek Hill. Yeah, in retrospect, he should have been basically at the very top of our fantasy boards. I thought he had a chance to maybe lead the NFL in receiving yards this year. I didn't place any wagers on that like I should have. I did place a wager on Justin Herbert potentially leading the NFL in passing touchdowns, which I think he had a couple in this game, right? No, just 1. So that kind of sucks. Maybe Tua leads the NFL in passing touchdowns, but nevertheless, Tyreek Hill is fantastic, and I think he's going to continue to be that way. He's going to be over 20 points more times this year than he's below it, if I had to guess. So pat yourself on the back because if you don't have Tyreek Hill, it's too late to get him now. Jalen Waddle, though, I think is also going to see a good portion of the passing game flow his direction. And today it just all went to Tyreek Hill. So I would say trade for Jalen Waddle if you have somebody going, man, you only got me 9 fantasy points. All right, he's going to be the beneficiary of that pass-heavy, high-flying Dolphins offense as well. On the other side, tough loss in NFL terms, in terms of like the standings for the Chargers, but did everything offensively that we'd hope to see from them. Keep an eye on the Austin Eckler injury. When you saw the box score and saw, wow, man, both of these running backs with 16 carries, and Joshua Kelly bursting onto the scene for 91 yards and a touchdown. Pretty impressive from him. I think there was an injury to Eckler, and now we'll await the Wednesday practice report on Austin Eckler, because if he's hurt, it could be full steam ahead for Kelly. But hopefully it's something just short-term for Eckler. Not too worried about the snap percentages now that we know that Eckler did have an injury that he was dealing with. But he was electric, and I think he's going to continue to be. Keenan Allen was very good in this game. Had a couple of rushing attempts, but mostly it was the passing game. 6 for 76. I look for that to continue. Mike Williams was solid on the 4 for 45. Donald Parham ended up with the touchdown, so nothing for Keenan or Mike Williams in terms of touchdown opportunities. Quentin Johnston is a guy that I would be trading for because I just don't see that the entire year he's going to operate so low in the pecking order. 2 for 9. I think I'd be trading for him or picking him up off of waivers if the opportunity should arise. I'm not too worried about the slow start. Some rookies start slow. Some start like Jordan Addison and Zay Flowers did, but others, start more like Justin Jefferson did a few years ago. Although I don't think Quentin Johnston's going to quite be on that level. I'm not panicking over the slow start for Quentin Johnston. 2 for 9 in his debut with the Chargers. You might be panicking if you're a Bears fan, though. 38-20, they lose to the Packers this weekend. Justin Fields did not look great throwing the football. We thought maybe he takes that step forward, but DJ Moore was just 2 for 25. DJ Moore, maybe not the A.J. Brown of this offense. We'll see. It's just 1 week. I still have high hopes for him. Darnell Mooney was written off so much in fantasy drafts to the extent that it was like, I guess this is just the way we all should be behaving. I'm regretting a little bit already that I didn't pay a little attention to. I mean, he was free in best ball. It was crazy the way he was dropping. And he's the wide receiver 2 on this team. I still think DJ Moore is the one. Cole Kmet's going to mix in as a nice high floor tight end. If you're in a PPR league, give some consideration to him if you're in the true wasteland at tight end, because Kmet could end up going for 8-9 points a week. And in many cases, that'll be enough. And when he finds the end zone, you'll be really happy. So keep an eye on that with Cole Kmet. Running game-wise, Roschon Johnson's the guy you want, and if it's not too late, grab him. We thought he would be the guy that would emerge eventually. I do like the talent of Khalil Herbert. I don't think he's a nothing. Deontay Foreman is a nothing. That was a preseason take that I had that after 1 week is looking a little bit correct because he doesn't really get involved in the passing game all too much. Roschon Johnson proving that he can. 6 for 35 is great for PPR. I think Roschon Johnson by the end of the year is the RB1 in Chicago. He was the backup to Bijan Robinson at Texas, but it doesn't mean he's no good just because he was the backup running back on his college team. I think Roschon Johnson ends up being the number 1 there. I don't think he's really available on too many waiver wires, but if he's out there, number 1 priority for me. I would say above Kyron Williams, above Joshua Kelly, maybe even above Puka. Honestly, if you need a running back, Roschon Johnson's a great one, and I would try to trade for him. I know anybody that probably drafted him late, and so they're probably thinking they've just got a value on their hands. But if you offer a guy from the mid-round, that would be the example of like, all right, one of my guys did poorly. I'm trying to think of an example that I'd be able to come up with on the fly. One of my like Terry McLaurin. Would I trade Terry McLaurin for Roschon Johnson? Probably not. But thinking in those terms where you have a guy that was drafted maybe in the 7th or 8th round of your fantasy draft, whereas Roschon was probably 10th or 11th, and my guy in the 7th round just didn't have a good first week. But if I also don't believe in him, like if I'm spooked, go try to get a Roschon Johnson. I think finding him on the way up, if you've got a guy on the way down, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I'd be into a trade for Roschon Johnson this week. Dallas Cowboys 40, New York Giants 0. Yep, that Daniel Jones contract's looking pretty cool. He was terrible, which meant Saquon Barkley couldn't do much. Darren Waller couldn't do much. A lot of this falls on Daniel Jones. A lot of it falls on the Dallas Cowboys defense, scoring nearly 40 fantasy points. Largely just ignore it for the Giants. I don't think you're doing anything actionable. You're not targeting any Giants via trade or anything like that. Maybe in a super flex league, I'm going and trying to get Daniel Jones because he's not always going to have to face the Dallas defense. I think Dallas is going to have an all-time defense. That's a rare case where I would trade for the Dallas defense if I could. After what we saw week 1, Sunday Night Football, I think they're going to be not that good all year, but they're going to be really good all year. And I only got them in a couple of leagues because I usually don't draft a defense at all. I'm kind of regretting that today. I would have loved to have had Dallas on more teams because I think they're going to continue to be great for fantasy. It was an absolute nightmare for Daniel Jones, and Cowboys are going to do that to people this year. Love the weather kind of helping them out, but I think they're legit. Tony Pollard was fantastic. CeeDee Lamb, 4 for 77's underwhelming. They didn't really need to throw the ball a ton in this game. Dak going 13 for 24, 143 yards. Don't worry about any Cowboys that didn't score for you because they just didn't need to. Not a concern. And then just the game we saw tonight with the overtime winner for the Jets over the Bills. 22-16 was the score. 22-16 in overtime. The walk-off winner as the Jets get the punt return in overtime. Josh Allen was terrible. I mean, the decision-making was awful by Josh Allen. 4 turnovers in total, 3 interceptions and a fumble. I don't think you can probably do anything about that. If you have him, hold him. It won't always be this bad. But his decision-making is a problem. But even on a night where he struggled in that area, 6 carries for 36 yards, he's going to continue to have a floor due to rushing. Although if your league really hurts you for like pick sixes and stuff, if there's a negative bonus attached like I have in some of my leagues, Josh Allen could hurt you this year, but I'm still not all that concerned. I tried to trade for him in a league, but like when I say trade for him, I'm not really offering a ton. I would offer a mid-level quarterback who had a good week plus somebody off my bench if I had depth somewhere. Lowball the guy because it can be frustrating to see a night like that from your quarterback. I'm sure it costs a lot of people their week because Josh Allen disappointed for fantasy. But I'll give you an example. I offered, and this offer was declined, and you can expect most offers to be declined. Don't get discouraged if 80%, 90% of your trade offers are declined. They should be. It's all about getting 1 or 2 trades done per month. You know, you don't have to do it every single week. You should be trying every single week. But the example I'm going to give you is a trade that was declined. I threw out Kirk Cousins because this guy is also the Justin Jefferson manager, and our league is 6-point passing touchdowns. So I thought, hey, Kirk Cousins got me 20 this week. Maybe this guy is like, you know what, tired of Josh Allen. I'm going to pair him with Jefferson and enjoy every JJ touchdown double. And then I paired, I think, Jaden Reed from the Packers with him off of my bench. Part of the issue is my whole bench is clogged up in the trade that I made on Thursday and doesn't process until tomorrow. But I would offer a Jahan Dotson maybe type of receiver if I have 5 receivers, and I do. Would I offer Kirk Cousins and Dotson for him tomorrow? I might. I might make that move to try and get Josh Allen. But you got to recognize, too, a lot of people drafted their Josh Allen very early on, and so they may not be ready to cut bait after 1 week. They shouldn't be, but you're looking for the 1 out of every 10 owners who is and goes, I'm done with this. I'm done with it. I had a guy who was done with Jahmyr Gibbs because he just didn't like the snap count. Is that going to happen in every league? No. But it doesn't mean don't ask. And there are too many people that get in their feels emotionally when it comes to fantasy football. And the guy in your league is going to be so offended and he's going to post you in the group chat. Just ignore it. Just be like, hey, dude, just trying to make my team better. If you don't like the trade, fine. Move on. I stay out of the emotional stuff when it comes to people reacting wildly. Like, how dumb do you have to be to react negatively to a trade offer? If it's a bad offer, there's a decline button for a reason. Don't go on tilt or try to flex on somebody because they offered you a bad trade. Send them a message and tell them why it was bad. Say, yeah, this really doesn't appeal to me. I think we're probably barking up the wrong tree. And then if they keep sending it, then you can clown them. That's fine. But if they send it once and you go, I think you're trying to assume I'm going to sell low on Josh Allen, and I'm just here to tell you that I'm not, the person should get that message. But you being on the other side of that, you should try to buy low on Josh Allen. It's the way this game works. So that's my 2 cents on that, and you'll hear a lot more of that from me on the channel. As we go along, Stephon Diggs was great. James Cook, I like the opportunity, not concerned. I'd be trading for James Cook off of that game if anybody's willing to give him up. I think he's going to be great, especially as Josh Allen improves his play. Aaron Rodgers being injured was not good news. I saw some people had a bet on their sports book at over 0.5 passing yards on a boosted promo. That did not pan out. Hopefully those bets are voided. How about Breece Hall, though? He's back and good to go. I mean, the recovery from the ACL, he was basically there every time in the fourth round. And I took him a few times, didn't take him enough times. I kind of grabbed him in a lot of my early drafts where it was lower buy-ins, and then I did my high buy-in drafts late. And I think I got gun shy because I had so much of him. I'm thinking, I don't need any more. I should have gotten more. 10 for 127. Breece Hall looked fantastic. 1 catch for 20. He's probably the RB1 this year. I don't think there's any way you can trade for him, but I would be trying. I mean, behind Tyreek Hill and Justin Jefferson in fantasy football, Christian McCaffrey, like Breece Hall should have been a first-round pick. It should have been McCaffrey, probably Eckler at the running back position. I don't really know if there's anybody else. Bijan Robinson, maybe. Breece Hall is going to be a freak. Now that they don't have Aaron Rodgers, I almost think it doesn't hurt Breece Hall. Like, until they get a quarterback that isn't Zach Wilson, they're going to have to run the ball. So those ideas of easing him into the season, yeah, I think those are gone for the most part. They're going to have to run Breece Hall, and I think he's going to be able to answer the bell. So no real problem there. Oh, and Garrett Wilson, only 5 for 34. He had the touchdown. The catch he made on the touchdown was ridiculous. That's going to be proof that they will game plan that passing game to get the ball into Garrett Wilson's hands. Don't trade away Garrett Wilson. If you want to try and trade for Garrett Wilson, I advise doing it. Still treat him like the exact guy that he was when you drafted him, regardless of no Aaron Rodgers. Like, I still think he's going to have some major week-winning performances this season in fantasy football. That catch he made on Monday night was just sensational. That's week 1 in the books. Appreciate you guys for listening and watching this video. I want your comments. You guys are going to drive a lot of the content on this channel. I'll do a standard kind of waivers where I talk through some of the waiver guys on Tuesday. We'll do some kind of start sits and stuff. We'll do trade strategies. That's going to be a lot of what I want to get into as the weeks go along and trades become more and more possible in fantasy football. But let me know in the comments, and if we get a lot of comments of people saying, hey, I want a video about this topic, that topic, the other topic, that's what's going to drive the channel. So hit subscribe, hit like, and join me for this ride. We'll build this fantasy community with some honest insight and reacting to things the way that they come. Hopefully you guys enjoy this content. We'll be back as early as Tuesday with the waivers show, so make sure you subscribe so you don't miss it. Thank you guys so much for watching and listening. We'll talk to you next time on the channel. Peace.